Well, now we continue Course in Miracles, text chapter 26, the transition, and 26.5, the little hindrance. Well, it's not so little to those asleep. To those asleep, the little hindrance is really, it's that wonderful English saying, to make a mountain out of a molehill. You know, a storm in a teacup. The little hindrance, your little idea of sin, your little problem, your little idea of suffering, your little idea of separation or lack of love or not being loved or not being worthy, that's your little hindrance. All those attack thoughts about yourself not being good enough. And whenever someone has perhaps insulted or said something which has affected your idea of self or your belief about who you are and your sense of specialness, the fact that you think you're spiritual, and because you're spiritual, you do all these ceremonies, and look at me, I'm so spiritual, or you go on these adventures and you're a gypsy and you're not to be attached, all that stuff that you see the gypsy woman write on Facebook, and look, I'm free, I'm not bound, and of course it's been hurt by love, so now it wants to be free and doesn't want to be bound by anything, until it meets James Bond, then it wants to settle down, and of course he won't. And all these little hindrances, all these little ideas, all these, the masculine who wants to be the hero of the dream, and no one loves him, and no one sees the effort he's working so hard to provide for his family, that he stays away from home for weeks on end. He's working for the family. Meanwhile, he's only working for his body, mind, ego, identity, but he claims he's doing it for the family, and then the family don't love him, and they don't want to talk to him, and all these ideas of suffering. Little hindrances, our little stories. Who would we be without our stories? Who would we be without telling our stories? You can't wait to meet someone, even on a stranger on a bus, just to tell them the story. Look at me, I'm so special. I'm so special because I've conquered the world and built a rocket that flies to the moon or Jupiter or Mars. Or I'm so special that I'm a victim of the world. I'm so special because I suffer so hard. Special as woe is me, or special, look at me, or look at my body, I'm so beautiful, or I'm so handsome, I'm so muscular. Let me post thousands of pictures of myself on Facebook. Don't you think it's amazing? 20 years from now, I'll be posting the same pictures because now I've aged, because I'm an image, I am age. And look at me, how I used to look, And look at me now, look at me how I looked then, and now the body's crumbling and things are starting to fail, and we've been pumping so much muscle and taking so many injections and collagens and stuff to make ourselves, stay youthful eternally. And our mind is screaming at us, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. Because that's what the ego reminds us of. You're going to die alone, you're going to die in poverty, you're going to die in pain. That's what the ego says. Little hindrances can seem large indeed to those who do not understand. Asleep, you cannot understand anything. That miracles are all the same. You could heal in an instant, cancer, leukemia, whatever. Body's going to die sometime. So at some time it's got to go. Don't be looking for a miracle at the age of 127. And, you want to live for another 30 years. What for? Okay. Sometime it's time to put the body down. Those that resist and fear death and try and live as long as possible, why do they fear death? Because they fear the unknown. And they fear their belief in a vengeful God that's going to punish them. And of course they're going to fear death. Because even though they love their God and they've done their penance, or so they think they have, that idea of sin never leaves you until you realize the self. There is no sin in the self. And so the little hindrance stays, no matter how good you've been. And yet a miracle heals it all. And what is really the great miracle? The healing of the mind. The healing of the mind into the recognition of itself as that self, capital S, which is the self-same self. Self-same essence is that which is the Son of God, the extension of God's love. Yet teaching that is what this course is for. It's teaching that there is no order of difficulty in miracles. It's why this course is called a course in miracles. This is its only purpose. For only that is all there is to learn. Hang on a second, Lou, but you're teaching us stuff that isn't in this course. Yeah. I've been doing this course for so long that it's taken me to a new level of understanding. Do you want me to just teach you the course, or do you want me to teach you what I also realized by having done the course however many years now? What's it, 15, I don't know, 15 years in a row, over and I've read it 15 times. I've done the curriculum 15 times, cover to cover, the workbook cover to cover, the manual for teachers cover to cover. So now that, and I've abided, and I've also studied many other doctrines and teachings I've read the Christian Bible 17 times, cover to cover, 17 variations thereof, including the Latin Bible, the Greek Bible, made the comparisons, looked at it, tried to find the truth, went into the I Ching, went into the Vedas, went into Upanishads, went into the Egyptian Book of the Dead, went into Taoism, went into Buddhism, really looked at all of them and found the same truth lying in all of them, the I am. And yes, Ho'oponopono, the forgiveness process, so aligned with this course, plus the Advaita Vedanta, the awareness of self, getting rid of the vasanas, the mental tendencies, the karmic imprints, all of that brought about an understanding which I share with you. Of course, the purest, if there's such a thing, Course in Miracles student, doesn't like the word non-duality, argo. And of course, the Christian's going to have a problem because there's no sin, and you claim to be the Son of God. How blasphemous. Argo. Don't care. Don't care what you think, because what thinks it thinks doesn't think at all. There's not a single thought you've ever had that is real. The only thought that is real is the thought you have with God, and that is an unconditionally loving acceptance of what is the eternal extension of the Son of God as that which is the love of God. Okay. Hello. What's up, boy? My cat's talking to me. Okay, and you can learn it many different ways. You can learn the miracle, the Course in Miracles, many different ways. All learning is a help or a hindrance to the gate of heaven. And all learning can be learning about ideas and ideologies that are just trapped in illusion. Okay. So it's either helps you to remember yourself or becomes a hindrance to what yourself really is. And what does dogma do? It traps you in the idea of sin, fear, and guilt, and traps you in the idea that someone had to die for you to live, therefore keeping the guilt in you. The Son of God had to die in order for you to be forgiven. Jesus had to go through the most horrific suffering that you may be saved. There's a sense of guilt in that. How can that possibly bring you to the heaven's gate without an inkling of fear and guilt? And so that's not what Jesus wants us to do. He wants us to be free from that idea. It's what he tried to teach us, that there is no suffering in a mind awake, and a mind that realizes I and my Father are one. And nothing in between is possible. And what do so many teachers for God, Course in Miracles teachers, try and do? They try and hang on to the objectified, personified Jesus, because it brings in the students, brings in the Christians that are transcending, gives them the numbers, and then try and understand the non-duality of A Course in Miracles. Not possible. You either understand non-duality, I and my Father are one self share, or you're trapped in duality, you, Jesus, God. Nothing in between is possible. Pick one. There are two teachers. There are only two teachers, only, who point in different ways. One turns you inwards, the Christ mind, awaken to self. And the other one tries to create all sorts of laws to justify itself, to find reason in an unreasonable world in which no reason can ever be made logic. There is no reason in illusions. Because as soon as you figure one out, another one pops up to question it. What questions but that which knows not what it is? The self doesn't question the self. The self doesn't seek the self. The Christ doesn't seek the Christ. God doesn't search for God. that which seeks, that which asks, that which questions, that which is troubled, that which is torn, that which lives in fear and worries about a future or regurgitates a past. That isn't true. And how do you answer that which isn't true? Do you give it another answer? It's just going to find fault with it and turn it into another elaborate story. So what's the answer? The only answer to everything. It's the correction. What is the correction? Practice forgiveness. What does the correction bring us to? The correction principle. Be thyself knowingly. Know thyself as that which is the Son of God, the Christ mind, the Holy Son, the extension of God. And how will you ever know that? Until all forgiveness is done, you won't know. And once all forgiveness is done, you see the mental tendencies. And the minute the mental tendencies come into your awareness, Holy Spirit, you can't forgive yourself. Okay? You can't remove your mental tendencies. You're practicing forgiveness on yourself. But what forgives yourself? The memory of God in you forgives yourself. How? Because it reminds you that what was trying to forgive itself doesn't exist. There's nothing to forgive. And what eradicates mental tendencies? What are mental tendencies? What's mental? Ego thoughts, ego thought tendencies. What eradicates mental tendencies of the ego? The memory of God. And what is the memory of God experienced as in a body mind awakening, right-mindedness, eternal, silent stillness, no thought. Investigate, find the root of the thought. You'll find there's nothing. It'll take you back to silence. Investigate. To whom does this thought appear? Find the little me to whom the thought appears. You either investigate the thought and find its source, doesn't exist. You'll go look for it. And stories, eventually design. To whom did the thought appear? Internal investigation. Who is this I, little me, this body mind? Go investigate, find the source of it. Try and remember yourself before you were born. Try and find your source. If you believe in the spirit world, try and remember the spirit world. And if you're in the spirit world, try and remember God. Try. Go and do regression work if you can. Go to a regressional hypnotherapist who can do life between life. All you'll do is remember nothing. You remember floaties and lots of little spirit bodies that are just as stupid as they are here on this earth. Spirit world, spirit beings, projected into physicality. If they're stupid here, they're stupid there. Don't believe me? Do regression. I did 3,000 there. I gave 3,000, recorded them. What are you going to find? More of the self, more stories of stories and self-aggrandization of little thoughts in form. There's another teacher, and that teacher is silent. The answer to everything, silent stillness. And when you abide in silent stillness, abide in gratitude. You will oscillate between silent stillness, gratitude, and inspired action. Through your talented nature, which is how you created you to observe the power of God, your talents will be used, will be reversed to serve. And you will apply yourself lovingly, whether you be an architect, policeman, lawyer, doctor, politician, truck driver, nurse, vet, whatever you may be. All those things that you created, that you pursued in order to be special, will be used to serve lovingly, knowingly. And you will go along the way your chosen teacher leads. If you want your teacher to be a teacher of specialness, you'll go there and make up all sorts of elaborate stories and even make them spiritual. Now you found a technique and you found a breathing and a prana and a ayahuasca and a this ceremony and a that ceremony. It's all illusion. I'm not interested in your opinion if you think you know better. I can tell you that no matter what you do in this world, no matter what ceremony you do in the world, you do it with the body and illusion. And you do it as a substance in the world of illusions. And how can a substance in the world of illusions transcend a body in this world of illusions? You just get trapped in the same bullshit storytelling, and you convince yourself it's spiritual, and you convince yourself people are healing. There's only one healing, and it's not of a body, although healing of the body is the effect of the healing of the cause. And what is the cause? The mind that believes it's separate. What is the miracle? the recognition of the self. I am spirit and I abide in God. God is spirit and abides in me. Not just regurgitating. This is not a mantra. This is not a look at me in spiritual. I am spirit and I abide in God. This is a recognition of yourself. This, you know your essence. Not a sensation, not a feeling, not an idea, not a thought, not a concept, the knowing. And you will only know that when you abide knowingly as thyself in silence, stillness, filled with gratitude for being that silent stillness. And when you abide there in a total instant, in a complete silent moment, the self will reveal itself to itself, the essence of you. I'm using words to describe something which took me the last 15 years to try and find words for it. Because for the last 15 years, I've struggled to share this knowing. The course has helped me put it into words. There are two directions you can take. Only two. While time remains and choice appears to be meaningful, while you think you choose. For never will another road be made except the way to heaven, the way to know thyself, heaven. Heaven, the mind of Christ, the mind of God's Son, awakening to itself, knowing it's never left its Father's kingdom. You but choose whether to go towards heaven, into silent stillness, abiding as joy eternally, or away to nowhere, to another story. There is nothing else to choose. There's only one death, and that is the death of the idea of you, and that is called the death of the little self. That's the only time anything ever dies, and even when this body dies, it's not a death. It's a temporal placing down of a device. It's like getting out of a taxi onto a train. The essence that travels in the taxi gets out of the taxi, travels into the train, climbs out of the train, climbs into an airplane, climbs out of the airplane into a taxi. Your body-mind vessels change. The essence of you keeps traveling, and you keep traveling looking for the answer, when the answer is that which appears to travel in dreams, to a place it's never left, through a time that's never existed. And simply to remember itself as that which is the only thing that exists, that which is the love of God. And through this process, you think you lose. You lose love, you lose loved ones, you lose things, people, places, things, and events. And yet, nothing is ever lost but time, which in the end is meaningless. Time is wasted on the youth, they say, when they walk with their old walking sticks. No, they wasted it when they were youthful. There's many a youth that doesn't waste it, for it is but a little hindrance to eternity, quite meaningless to the real teacher, the memory of God, Holy Spirit, the teacher of the world, the one that reminds the world that it doesn't exist, and what does exist is the essence which has projected itself through its perception and sees a world that is not there. It's only seeing itself, but misperceives it as people, places, things, and events. Yet since you do believe in it, and don't you convince yourself for 1 second that you're a Course in Miracles student or a non-dualist so you don't believe in it. While you appear in your own form, you believe in it to some extent. Right now you're sitting in a chair. You believe in that chair and you trust it with your full faith. Well, you wouldn't be sitting still right now. You'd be wondering when it's going to collapse. Why should you waste it going nowhere? What are you searching for? Where are you searching? When it can be used to reach a goal as high as learning can achieve, and no more. Think not the way to heaven's gate is difficult at all, because it never left it. You didn't go through the gate. Nothing you undertake with certain purpose to be thyself knowingly, the greatest purpose, and high resolve I will know myself. I will remember God with total clarity and happy confidence, because God is the only thing I seek. Seek ye only the kingdom of heaven. Holding your brother's hand. Why? Because all of it is me. Love your creations. Nothing left to forgive. And keep stepping to heaven's song. The silent stillness. In the infinite lightness of being. Experienced through the gratitude of awareness of being awareness itself. Don't you ever think that that is difficult to do. But it is hard indeed to wander off, to believe you're a body, to believe you're alone, to believe you're miserable and tell your miserable stories down a road that leads to nothing but despair, suffering, guilt, and the fear of death. And that has no purpose but to trap you in the idea of suffering, fear, sin, guilt, and bodily death. Isn't that the most difficult thing you could do? To keep yourself trapped in the idea that this thing suffers, that this thing is guilty, that this thing is evil, that this thing has evil thoughts? Pay no attention to that yakety-yak bullshit mind that tells you you're unworthy, that you're not loving, and that you're evil, and that you've done bad things, and that you did whatever you're supposed to do when you were supposed to have not done it. Don't listen. Holy Son of God, you've done nothing. Holy Son of God, fractured part of Holy Son of God, you've done nothing. Nothing that is real in this dream. Nothing. The fracturing off, the idea of sin, the creation of a planet, the creation of the universe, the idea of sin, fear, guilt, you've done none of it. It's a tiny mad hindrance, a tiny second that doesn't exist in God's mind. And you've made an entire 16.4 billion years of ideas out of it. Let it all go. Be free now. Know thyself. Be thyself. Give God your tithing. Mispronunciated in the Bible. It was meant to be timing. Give God your time, the illusion thereof. Give him your time in silent stillness. Abide in God. Sink into your heart, the temple, symbolically. There's nothing here. There's no heart here. Forget about chakras and all that nonsense. Just sink, symbolically sink into that, what appears to be this dark abyss. Of course it appears to be dark to the ego, because the ego cannot see light, and light knows not of the ego. So when you sink into that heart, which appears to be a dark abyss, and there appears to be a dying, sink. And the minute you sink below its surface, you'll know yourself as the light which is the Christ, the light which is the Son of God, the self-same essence as God. Go, sink. What have you got to lose? You fucked around your whole life. You've been miserable most of it. Anything past 16, you went batshit fuck miserable. How much longer do you want to tell your fucking miserable story? Wrapped up with ideas of spiritual specialness from one motherfucking lousy fucking spiritual retreat to the next. What have you got out of it? Oh, it was so wonderful while I satsanged and walked in circles and sang kumbaya and biodanzed myself into a fucking standstill and stared each other in the eye and told you, oh, I love you. Bodies telling bodies they love them, and embraced and hugged. What have you achieved? Yeah, you are still listening to me. It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked thus far, because you tell the same fucked up, miserable story about how you suffered and how you guilty and how you don't deserve to feel loved, and how love abandoned you, and how all men or women or whatever the fuck they were arseholes. You've done it all to yourself as a story in your mind. What is mind? Ideas and thoughts clustered together that buy into an identity you call you. You're none of that. You're none of that. Holy Son of God. God gave his teacher, his memory. The teacher is the memory of God. It's not another entity. Don't make up another story. The Christians can't explain Holy Spirit. None of them. Try and find two churches that explain it in the same way. They cannot. Don't go there into storytelling. They can't give you a plausible, clear answer. They'll make up some bullshit story. Don't go there. Antiquity dogma cannot give you an answer. Ritual dogma cannot go there. Don't read another fucking book. Don't listen to another fucking teacher, including this one. Go be still and know thyself. Go find a place where you can retreat and sink into the silence and be grateful for the silence and watch that silence grow. Don't believe me. Watch that silence bubble to the surface. Silent stillness, silent stream starts to bubble into the joyous knowing of our being and starts to shine in the infinite lightness of being as the self. And it knows itself as that which is the essence of its creator, shared with its creator, shining forever, extending as that which is, and nothing more about that can be said. And God gave you the memory of that to replace all the bullshit ideas you've made and all the silly little fucking stories you like to tell, and all the stupid questions you like to ask because you want to go and find answers to which there is no answer. What in this world can make any fucking sense? Any sense? You can go to the happy, happy kumbaya teachers and they hug you and embrace you and they've given it all up and now they just abide and go from one place to the next and some poor motherfucker's got to feed them because they've now given up the world. This teacher is still responsible for thousands of employees and for a family he takes care of and for charities he still supports. I still got to work every single day in traffic and fight it all and take care of struggling businesses. I take one after the next and transform them into abundance. I haven't given up. I haven't become all spiritual. I haven't fucking given up. Ooh. I've never taken a cent from anyone, but given millions away all the time. Listen to the one that has been through fucking hell, been through a war, physical war, been through atrocities as a child, racism, discrimination, through the worst of it, who went through anger, went through vengeance, but never gave up on God. Conversations that, man, was I angry with my idea of God many a time, and my idea of Jesus many a time that I stare up into the abyss heavens and shout at him, the worst profanity you can imagine. But the communication never stopped and I never gave up on him, even though I thought he'd given up on me, which of course he never did. So he's given us the memory, the true teacher, to replace this idea, not to conflict with it. When you're trapped in conflict, the ego has trapped you. When the ego traps you in the wrong mind, it splits you up in two. Wrong mind is right mind, wrong mind. Wrong mind is always split in two. Always. And it's the good wrong, the wrong mind, and the right wrong mind. The good cop, the bad cop. The good angel, the bad angel, the good guy, the bad guy. The idea of yourself as good and the idea of yourself as evil are both egoic. Right mind, no idea of yourself. The silent stillness, the abidance. And here's the best part of it all, teacher for God. Please figure this out by now. Please figure this out by now so that you can shut up and be still and know I am. And what he would replace has been replaced. You but regurgitate a story over and over, lifetime after lifetime, that is done. You are already awake at God. You're awake in God like a person who's awoken from a deep nightmarish sleep. Went downstairs and you put your slippers on and you lit your cigarette and you've got the coffee machine going and you're half fucking past awake and the dream is still playing in your head and you're no longer in your bed, but you're still in the fucking miserable dream you're in. And the coffee is now poured and you've just had your first sip and you forgot to add the sugar and you've lit another cigarette and you're looking out the window. Oh, it's daylight. And the light has come. And then only do you forget the dream. Have another cigarette. Stop telling your fucking unreal story. Woe is me, you're not empathetic. No, I'm not pathetic. I have no empathy because I'm not pathetic. Empaths are pathetic, empathetic. Ooh, you've insulted us again. Damn fucking right, I've insulted your ego. This is the reason why I exist. I exist to bring you into the truth, one little fucking shock at a time. Because the pleasant way doesn't work for you. Whilst you wouldn't have found me, you would have found the kumbaya bunch. You found me because you're fucking stubborn, because you have a tough ego. And that ego allowed you to survive, but you've been so trapped by that fucking thing that you won't let it go, and you had to find a profound profanity teacher. Here I am. And fuck, I'm enjoying it. This is my greatest pleasure. Do I love doing this? My theatrics, my little madness, my joyous self comes to the surface and says, follow me, but you have to do it quietly because I'm deaf. I can't hear you. Time lasted, not lasts, lasted, but an instant in your mind with no effect upon eternity. But you keep yourself there every time you complain. Because what you complain, you resist. What you resist persists. When are you going to figure it out? You've written it on a fucking postcard 1,000,000 times. You've stuck it on your fridge. You've quoted it 1,000,000 times. This too shall pass. It's past. It's gone. And so is all time past. Either you believe this whole course or not at all. And if you disagree with this, put that fucking blue book down and walk the fuck away now. Because then you don't believe it. Oh, Lush, you're being so hard. Conversation with myself. Yes, of course I am. Because no one listens if you talk to them in sweet, beautiful tones. Poor Ramana Maharishi. Poor Neem Karoli Baba. Poor Muji. They fucking come and they sit and they stare at him and they want to be blessed and touched and told, what about this and what about that? And tell my miserable story and tell me I'm special. You're not special. You're trapped in your own self-egoic nightmare. Get out of it. All time has passed. And everything exactly as it was before the way to nothingness was made. You've not left God. The tiny trick of time in which the first mistake was made, and all of them within that one mistake, including the fear of death, sin, fear, guilt, held also the correction. What is the correction, Lou? It's the teacher, the memory of God, the Holy Spirit in you for that one. And all of them that came with the first error came the first and only correction. So the minute you made your first mistake, okay, the correction was given to that mistake. And that first mistake, which made all of the little mistakes subsequently, that correction fixed all of them subsequently. And in that tiny instant, time was gone. That was all it ever was, a tiny instant that didn't exist. And you keep replaying that instant every time you think. And worse, every time you open your mouth to complain about suffering, to complain about complaining, to complain about what you resist complaining about. Yup. You open your mouth, the ego flows out. Unless you're using that device to bring the memory of God to minds that have forgotten, shut it up for your sake. Me, I love listening to your stories. Not. Maybe I should start charging. Then the stories will stop. What God gave answer to is answered and is gone. Now, who wants to tell their story? Who wants to go first when I press mute and I get to do questions? Let's see which ego speaks first. To you, who still believe you live in time and know it's not gone, the Holy Spirit still guides you through the infinitely small and senseless maze you still perceive in time, though it has long since gone. You think you live in what is past. You think you live in what is past. You don't live in present. You only live in past. The truth of you has never been in past. The truth of you is always only present in God's mind. Each thing you look upon, you but saw for an instant, 1/1000th of a second, long ago, before its unreality gave way to truth. Everything you think you see doesn't even exist anymore. And the stars are pure proof of it, that 99.9% of the stars you think exist are gone. They died billions of years ago when time did not exist. Not one illusion still remains unanswered in your mind. But you'll only know this because mind is dead quiet. And until you go dead quiet, not die in order to be dead quiet, go dead quiet while you appear to live, because if you die before you learn dead quiet, you're coming back to learn it. Until you go totally silent and be thyself knowingly, you won't know that this is true. You won't know that all your illusions have been corrected, that all questions have been answered. For there is only one question, what am I? And there's only one answer, you are my holy son. Uncertainty was brought to certainty so long ago that it is hard indeed to hold it in your heart, as if it were before you still, because never has anything been uncertain, because God is certain and so is his son. And that which thinks it thinks doesn't exist until the thinking that it thinks opens its mouth and blah, 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 tells its story. The only time you open it is to share an understanding, to share a truth, to share something that uplifts others. Try from this day forward, promise this to yourself, to never, ever ask another question unless you know what it's for. And the only thing it should be for is to remind you of who you are, not to try and understand illusion. And try and only open your mouth in total gratitude. So you relay something of gratitude and pour it out in gracious gratitude, in passionate, gracious gratitude. Or speak no more. Try and see what happens. See how your life is transformed if you stop yourself from complaining for just a week. What is that? 21 days, 21-day habits of successful people. Try that Carnegie process. Just try. Just try 7 hours. Go 7 hours without complaining. To yourself. Try 7 hours. The minute the thought comes up, no. Thought come up, no. No. And I don't mean go switch on the TV so you're just senselessly watching a movie. No thought. That's not abiding in God. That's watching TV, listening to the radio, listening to music, going for a drive. Go be still. Sit on your Uranus and align it with your third eye and don't fucking move. And try and do that for 1 hour. Just try 1 hour and not let a single thought comes in. And tell me then whether you felt better or not. And I can guarantee you, 1 hour without thought, you'll feel like you're God himself. Because no thought means peace. And peace means attracting more to be peaceful for. Now try that 1 hour in total gratitude. And what do you think is going to happen when you spend 1 hour in gratitude? If you put your moments of gratitude throughout your entire life together, think of all the times you've been grateful. Think of all the times and add them up as minutes. How much time in your entire life have you spent in gratitude? If you're lucky, an hour. Maybe if you're very, very lucky, a day. And if you're stupendously lucky, a week. And if you're miraculously lucky, in your entire life, you've spent 1 month in gratitude. 1 month, an entire lifetime. 1 month of gratitude, 50 years of fucking hell. Turn it around, Holy Son of God. The tiny instant of nothing you would keep and make eternal, passed away in heaven too soon for anything to notice that it even existed. What appeared too quickly to affect the simple knowledge of the Son of God can hardly still be there for you to choose to be your teacher. The world of sin, fear, guilt, misery, and all the shit you talk about. Stop. Only in the past, an ancient past, too short to make a world in answer to creation, too short to even be real, did this world appear to rise. It's gone. It's no longer there. You keep recalling it. You keep recalling it into your mind. You've now gone downstairs. You've had your coffee. You've even had your breakfast. You've got dressed. You got in the car. Now you're replaying your nightmare. And then you wonder why you crash into someone in the traffic. You're creating it. You keep recreating it because you love the fucking drama. When God said, be still and know I am, not only was it said from self to self, what they should have written was God said, shut the fuck up, and then you'll know who I am, because I am that which abides in you, and only when you're fucking quiet for a couple of years will you figure out that I abide in you as you abide in me. But unfortunately, they put it through in Christian words and said, be still and know I am. And no one's ever figured it out, because if it was an instruction for God and God had come down, and said, hey, would you please just shut the fuck up? Maybe then you would have got it. So the voice for God, maybe you decide through the voice of Lou, says, shut the fuck up. Maybe that's why the Catholics used to do penance and then used to charge for confession, because maybe it's the only way the poor Catholic priests could handle it. After listening to a whole day of confession, they would take their confessional money and go to the pub and drink whiskey. Maybe that's the only way they cope, listening, fucking complaining, mea culpa, mea culpa. Whoa, I'm such a sinner. My life is miserable. Your life is miserable because you don't shut the fuck up. Try. Just try. Hey, I love the stories. You can keep entertaining me, but for your sake, I would be quiet. Some people send me emails that go, Lou, we can't comment on your Facebook, on your YouTube. You go, yeah, why do you want to comment? Because I disagree. That's why you can't comment. Who disagrees? Because you're a little bit profound in profanity. Profanity and profoundness comes the same. Profanity means I'm just honest. People that use profanity are honest. It's a psychology paper. It's fact. What are they being honest about? They're being honest about what they understand. There it is. You're insulted. I don't give a shit. Didn't like school teachers anyway. Found them all mostly to be a little stupid and quite moronic. I mean, who the fuck leaves school and then goes straight back to teach school kids? That's very... So, profanity, I don't give a shit. Who's offended? Are you going to give me a -C for English? I don't give a fuck. I don't care about the dream. I don't care about the dream characters. I care about the essence in all of us, which is the same self in me. So if I awaken this self, I awaken all others. What am I trying to fix you for? I'm not trying to fix you. I'm just sharing because I enjoy this. Get a live audience. Woo. A live audience that complains that I don't fit into their fucking schedule. How's that? It's for free. Still complain. Isn't that amazing? But I thought you were going to be on it. Shut the fuck up and be grateful. It's for free. Just be grateful. Fuck your agenda and your timetable. It's for free. Just be grateful. Pitch, don't pitch. Watch it on YouTube, watch it live. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to do it anyway. This isn't spiritual. Who the fuck ever told you Course in Miracles is spiritual? Whoever the fuck made religion spiritual or the Bible spiritual? Only stupid idiots that needed to find themselves special because they had fuck all else in the world but to make themselves special by making themselves spiritual or religious. It's all bullshit. It's ego blowing hot air up its ass. There's fuck all spiritual about this. You're either awake or you're awakening. This one's awakening in a rude way. It's a rude awakening. And not everybody stays. I mean, I see them join the group. Oh, Luigi, must be like Muji. No, fuck you. And then they leave. Oh, too much profanity. Who gives a shit? Enjoy it or don't enjoy it. At least it should give you some shits and giggles. More shits than giggles. But hey, sometimes you awake by shitting yourself. Sometimes it's the only way to go. So listen carefully now. So very long ago, for such a tiny interval of time, that not one note in heaven's song was missed. Not one note. Not one little bit of light dimmed for a second, and this world was over. It's over. You're replaying the memory. That's all that's happening. Yet in each unforgiving act or thought, in every judgment, and in all belief in sin, in other words, religion, is that one instant still called back as if it could be made again in time, and again, and again, and again. You keep an ancient memory before your eye, and he who lives in memories alone is unaware of where he is. Just like those batshit old farts in those old age homes, when we were young and we used to, the when we club, and no idea where they are. And while you live in illusions, you have no idea where and what you are. You're unaware that you have never left God's mind, Holy Son of God. The answer to enlightenment is shut the fuck up. Be still. Is this a hindrance to the place whereon he stands? Is any echo from the past that he may hear a fact in what there is to hear and where he is now? And how much can his own illusions about time and place effect a change in where he really is? Because illusions about time and place are illusions about here and now and the timeless eternity of God's eternal self. But while you complain and you recalling the story, you stay trapped in the dream of which you awoke from eons ago. Before the Big Bang, you woke up. And you've been dreaming the same dream for 16 billion years, thinking you're a soul advancing, and now you're some special old or master soul or some indigo thing from some Palladian something, where the unicorns and fairies unite and have sex on the full moon. This is the shit this world of spirituality makes up. And nothing is more lost in translation than religion. And the only thing that matches the lost in translation of religion is the Course in Miracles stuff, because it just goes and tries to wrap it up in religion by using the same objectification figurehead Jesus and wrap it into I love Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God and I am. Guys, there is only I am. The essence of self awakens to self, and that self is the self-same essence as God. God is. That's it. God is. Nothing more. And you are but that which is the extension of what God is. The unforgiven is a voice that calls from the past forevermore gone by. Gone forever. And you just keep recalling it, tell your story. And everything that points to it is real is but a wish that what is gone could be made real again so you can suffer and tell your story again and seen as here and now in place of what is really now and here, which is only the love of God. Is this a hindrance to the truth? The past is gone and cannot be returned to you. Isn't this worth being celebrated? The fact that you're not a body, that you can't suffer, that you never die, and that your idea of dying and suffering isn't real until you believe it, and then it's real for you, and then it happens to you, and you experience it. And do you want that fearful instant kept, where heaven seemed to disappear, and God was feared, and made a symbol of your hate? And trust me, that's what religion does. God is feared and made a symbol of their hate. Why? Because they hate the fact that they have to behave and be so self-righteous and so loving, because they just want to go fucking debaucherous. And that's why they need to bandy together to find courage and then go and kill some small nation. Onward, Christian soldiers. Lost in translation. I promise you, the very being which they put on the pedestal and worship as a deity and an objectified figure, if it was to stand next to them, they wouldn't understand it. They wouldn't see it. They wouldn't recognize it. And God, Jesus, isn't coming down on a cloud, because some farmer in the Free State would shoot him with a shotgun. I guarantee you. Forget the time of terror that has been so long ago corrected and undone, and you've replayed it over and over in your mind. You've replayed it 1,000 times even today. Can sin withstand the will of God? What can the will of God not undo and dissolve in the instant? Can it be up to you to see the past and put it into the present? You cannot go back. There is no back. There is no forward. There's only the here and now eternally. And everything that points the way in the direction of the past, but sets you on a mission whose accomplishments can only be unreal. Memory is not true. Truth is true and is always here, accessible to you in the eternal here and now. Such is the justice of your all-loving, look how it capitalizes that, Father, has ensured must come to you, for such he is and such you are, all-loving. from your own unfairness, because you've only been unfair to yourself, has he protected you. And he's protected you from being truthfully unfair to yourself, because if he gave you the free will to destroy yourself, you would have destroyed yourself, and we wouldn't be reading this course. You cannot lose your way, because there is no way but his. And there is no way at all, because you've never left that which is his with that which is God. And nowhere can you go except to him, because you are in him. Would God allow his son to lose his way along a road long since a memory of time gone by? How could you lose your way when you've already through the road? It's done, you're home. Can't get lost, you're already home. Looking for a roadmap to get home, you're home, you've never left. This course will teach you only what is now. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. A dreadful instance in a distant past, now perfectly corrected, is of no concern nor value. Let never a complaint cross your mouth again. Let never an evil word of malice or disagreement with anything cross your lips again. Let the dead be gone and peacefully forgotten, because nothing died, just illusions died. Resurrection has come to take its place. The Son of God is now awake. And now you are a part of the resurrection. You are that, not of death. No past illusions have the power to keep you in a place of death, this illusionary world. A vault, God's Son entered an instant to be instantly restored to his Father's perfect love. And how can he be kept in chains so long since removed and gone forever from his mind, unless he replays the chains over and over again, because he loves the clanking of that horrible metal against his skin, because he wants to suffer, because he loves the attention suffering brings, because he's so long forgotten his Father's love that he needs the attention of illusion in order to feel loved. Step above the battlefield, Son of God, and remember the truth of what you are. And when you know thyself, you will know you are the love of God, which surpasses, surmounts, transcends understanding into the knowing of yourself as that which is love beyond our egoic comprehension. The Son whom God created is as free as God created him. He was reborn the instant he chose to die instead of live, because God wouldn't let him die. And will you not forgive him yourself now for all the silly stories you've told yourself, all the bullshit ideas you've believed in, all the things you've done wrong, all those things, all those times you fucked up properly, because he made an error in the past that God remembers not and is not there, because it happened only in his dreaming mind. It never happened in God's reality. Now you are shifting back and forth between the past and the present. Sometimes the past seems real, as if it were the present, as if you're reliving it. Voices from the past are heard and then are doubted, but go and dop a little bit more and do another ayahuasca and see what happens. And those voices that you haven't forgiven seem to return, and you think you're going to figure something out from it. You haven't figured it out while you're sober. How the fuck are you going to figure it out while you're high? No, you're not. You are like to one who still hallucinates, but lacks conviction in what he perceives. This is the borderland between the worlds, the bridge between the past and the present. Here the shadows of the past remain, but still a present light is dimly recognized. So it's not completely forgotten. Once it is seen, This light can never be forgotten, because the light is the essence of what you are. And once it's known as that which you are, known as truth, no illusion can ever replace the knowing of what you are. It must dawn. It must draw you from the past into the present, where you really are, and where you'll always be, eternally, forever, in the mind and heart of God. The shadow voices, hallucinations, the past, all your ideas of sin, fear, guilt, all your ideas, shadow voices, yourself, attacking yourself, the memories of unforgiven self, do not change the laws of time or eternity. No matter what you think you've done nothing in truth. They come from what is past and gone, and hinder not the true existence of the here and now. What people think when they see demons are mirrors of themselves in the past, unforgiven. Unforgiven. The real world, that which appears to your mind when you abide in silent stillness and know thyself as that which is the Son of God, this world, while you remain here for one purpose only, to serve, to bring the truth passionately through your natural talent, your passionate nature. Don't try and change yourself. Be as you are. Here's an example of a rogue, cowboy teacher, angel on a Harley. Call it what you want. Let's have fun with it. This is my way. If I wanted to be all spiritual, and imagine, would I sound authentic if it's like, Namaste, Nomini Patris Spiritus Sancto, Amen. No, Argo works better here. Argo. The real world is the second part of the hallucination. Time and death are real and have existence that can be perceived. So you're seeing anew. The filters are dropping. You're starting to see another way. This terrible illusion was denied. In but the time it took for God to give his answer to illusions for all time and every circumstance. Just imagine you grab a bucket of water and you scoop a bucket out of a swimming pool, like this nice circular motion. Can you imagine the circular motion scooping out of the water? And when you hold a bucket, is there like a scoop out of the water, like you would with a spoon and ice cream? Or does that water fill itself instantly? In that same instant, God corrected the idea of this entire universe, 16.4 billion years, expanded and collapsed instantly and awoke in God. Dream is over. And then you sat. Well, sat is no body, but let's just use it as a concession. And you just thought to yourself, what the fuck did I just dream up? And you couldn't just leave it there. You had to go into it and imagine it. And then you started thinking about it, and then you reimagined your little dream. And next thing you were feeling guilty again, and then you felt, oh my fuck, and there we are. You know, you've now smoked 647,000 million packets of cigarettes, and you've drank 6 billion tons of espresso, and you're still playing this silly mad idea, and your father's tapping you on the shoulder going, hey, dude, stop the shit now. Wake up. You're in my kingdom. Be the light you are. Forgive your dream. Wake up. Let's go create. But no, you want to tell your story. You want to tell your story because I am real. You're not real. The essence of you is real. The rest of you throw away. And then it was no more to be experienced as there. Each day and every minute in each day and every instant that each minute holds, you but relive the single instant when the time of error took the place of love. Each day, each minute in each day, and every instant that that minute holds, you tell your little stories, and you but relive every time you tell your stories, the single instant, every time you tell your complaints and stories, when the time of terror, and every time you bring up the past, took the place of love and stay there, not realizing you are love because you love to tell your fucking story. Stop. Enough already. And that's why. Let me explain to you why. And so you die each day to live again and tell your fucking stories until you cross the gap when you realize the stories aren't helping you between the past and the present, which is not a gap at all. The distance is the distance between you and your heart. Such as each life, a seeming interval from birth to death and on to life again. If you know that you're going to come back, why are you fearing death? Unless you think you fucked up and you're not going to come back so lacquer the next time round. Unless maybe you think you've been insulting all the stupid people and now God's going to punish you and send you back stupid. Don't worry, God has no idea what you've dreamt up, and therefore God isn't going to force you to come back. You're going to force yourself to come back. And so birth and death and on to life and on and on and on and on again. Reincarnation, 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 reincarnation. Bloody hell, how many times? A repetition of an instant gone by long ago that cannot be relived, but you try. And all of time is but the mad belief that what is over is still here and now. And so you have another opportunity to tell your suffering stories. Let's go spiritual now. Let's go high spiritual. Let's go purple. Here it is, teacher for God. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. Now, to forgive the past is one thing. To let it go is to shut the fuck up. And then it is gone. Because if you tell your story again, you haven't forgiven it. You're telling it again. You haven't let it go. You stand no longer on the ground that lies between the worlds. You have gone on and reached the world that lies at heaven's gate. You're here now. You're there. Chapter 26, you're there. Unless you haven't been listening. Unless you only came here to tell your story, in which case, doesn't matter what I've said, you haven't listened, you're only here to tell your story. In which case, this has been a 26th chapter waste of time. There is no hindrance to the will of God. Zip. There is fuck all God can't do. Never heard it put that way, have you? Nor need. Nor any need that you need to repeat again a journey that was over long ago. There's no need. Look gently on your brother. Forgive. So if I pissed you off, forgive me. Practice forgiveness. Very good example to practice forgiveness on. And behold the world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love. And you'll only know this. Abide gratitude. I'll stop there. And let's see if there's going to be any questions.